Welcome back to Pro Football Addiction Conference Championship weekend, and a matchup that probably doesn't surprise anybody. If I'd have told you at the beginning of the season that this is what we were getting, nobody would have been shocked. We got it. Josh Allen beats out Lamar Jackson. The Bills win at home, and we have Pat Mahomes and Josh Allen. Quickly, Kyle, before we get into that one, is the story just written on Lamar? Like, is this just what we're getting in the playoffs? Like, let's talk a little bit about Bills and Ravens before we talk about the Chiefs.
Yeah, I thought Lamar played better this past game than he has in some of his past postseason losses, and I mean the reality is that there were some really bad breaks that went against him in this game, stuff that wasn't his fault. You had Mark Andrews giving the game away twice basically,
No.
and I like Mark Andrews. He's a great player. He's been a good receiver, great blocker as a tight end in this league for a long time. But he fumbles that ball at midfield when they're driving earlier in the game, and then there at the end. That 2-point play, it's a good play by Lamar. He creates time, he makes space, and just clangs off his hands, right? So, you don't like to make excuses for guys, but the quarterback can't throw the ball and catch it, can't play defense. I thought Lamar played well. The Bills are a tough defensive matchup. They like to take away what you do best, and they contain Derrick Henry in a way that not a lot of teams have this year. Henry had a pretty good game, but not what he wasn't wrecking it for the Bills like this happened for a lot of Ravens opponents this year. So I don't know. It's tough to know what the Ravens need to do better, or specifically what they can do to strengthen the team to really stand up to Josh Allen, to Patrick Mahomes. There's a world in which I think you can see this could be Chiefs, Bills, one of those two teams coming out of the AFC for the next 5 years. And maybe Lamar is just behind them in the pecking order. You know what I mean? Which isn't to say he's not a great player and an elite quarterback, but there are levels to this thing, right? So I feel for Lamar. I thought he played a good game overall, and just had some bad luck with the way things went with the team. But what are you going to do, right? The Bills played a cleaner game. Josh Allen played a little bit of a cleaner game, even though, Josh Allen's numbers this past weekend were not impressive, but, they got it done, put up points when they had opportunities, and that's the game for you.
Yeah. On the other side, we talked a little bit about the Chiefs-Texans game when we previewed it last week. Did you come away from that thinking it went about like you thought, like the Texans were kind of in it, but never really with the chance to win? The Chiefs kind of salted away late. But did it go down about like you thought? Do you feel, again, we talked about how, maybe they're the most unimpressive 16-win team ever at this point. Do you feel better about the Chiefs? Do you feel about like you did going into that game?
We talked last week about, kind of expecting an ugly game. I had the Texans with points, which I think just barely got there thanks to that. It's funny. I actually teased that line to 10.5 with a couple other plays on this past weekend. And when the Chiefs blocked that field goal, I was cooked. Which is that's a bad beat, right? But then a few minutes later, you got Andy Reid having his punter run out the back of the end zone. And suddenly, with 14 seconds on the clock, there I am sitting at 9 points. So, thanks, Andy. I appreciate it. I know you're looking out for me. But, yeah, overall the game, I said before that I don't think the Chiefs are a great team, but that I didn't think the Texans were the team that was going to be able to necessarily expose them and really punish them for some of the things that they don't do at a high level. And also you had, Travis Kelce with a throwback performance this past weekend, kicking it like it's 2022. He was impressive. Mahomes made plays when he had the chance, and they got it done. So yeah, ultimately at this time of year, all you care about is the W, right?
Yeah.
How pretty or ugly it is doesn't really matter. It's nice to talk about, but bringing up this matchup with these two heavyweights, we call them heavyweights. I feel like maybe I'm crazy, but I think it's wild that the Chiefs are favored in this game. Even playing at home, just with what we've seen them put the product on the field this year, it's just hard to have them as a favorite over Buffalo, home or away. The Bills are such a strange team, right? So, the Bills this year are fifth in the league in yards, third in points, despite their leading receiver being Khalil Shakir with 821 yards. and their leading rusher James Cook putting up just over 1,000 yards. So they're a team that has no really hugely impressive individual skill position players. Some guys who do things well, but nobody who really threatens defenses, makes defensive coordinators sweat at night. And despite that, they've been without question elite offense, just putting up yards, putting up points. Whereas you look at the other side of the field, the Chiefs haven't scored over 30 one time this year, right? They maxed out at 30 points a couple of times. And so at least on paper, it's just hard to find reasons to like the Chiefs. I will say that Josh Allen, had kind of a down game this year against the Chiefs, but even that wasn't bad. Uh, you know, a touchdown, interception, not great efficiency like he had for most of the year, but even then they beat the Chiefs by 9, which is their worst result this year. Outside of the last week of the season when the Chiefs were resting everybody. So.
I guess maybe the biggest reason they're favored is for the things you can't measure. Like they just always seem to get it done against bad odds, against good, like with good odds, whatever. Like they'll play poorly against a bad team and somehow get a break, whether it's them making their own break, whether it's an official's call, whether it's another team fumbling an opportunity. It just seems like things always go their way. Like
and at the end of the day, despite what how they looked this year. You go 15-2, and you go into the playoffs with home field. You've got Andy Reid, who I don't see how he's not the best coach in the league today, and you got Patrick Mahomes, who similarly is the clear number one quarterback in the game. I get that it's hard to pick against them, right? Especially with that home field advantage. Kansas City's a tough place to play, um, And Andy Reid doesn't mess around in the postseason, right? He's had so much success with the Eagles, getting them advanced through rounds and playing in Super Bowls, and obviously this run with Patrick Mahomes is something we haven't seen very often at all. So I do get it, right? The Chiefs are at the top of the mountain until somebody knocks them off, and nobody has yet.
Chiefs fans are going to hate this, but I'm going to ask it anyway. Are referees just more cautious with Mahomes? I really don't buy into a lot of conspiracy stuff. Is it more his style? Yeah. Is it more his style of just, run it? I do think it's somewhat unfair to defenses at all levels, right? From college to pro, where quarterbacks can just run around forever and then quickly slide down. And if a guy has already kind of left his feet, he's in trouble.
That half step out of bounds.
Yeah. But it does seem like they are more careful. Like we're Bucs guys, right? Like Baker never gets those kind of calls, right? And there is a tier system, it feels like, where some quarterbacks are down here. Lamar gets it a little bit more. Josh gets it, and then Pat gets it the most. What is it?
So I think part of it comes down to, and this is observable in Chiefs games, I think Mahomes is, I think you see a lot of quarterbacks do it, that hanging on until the last second before taking themselves out of a play, and then a penalty comes. I think he's got that timing so down. And then when contact does come, whether it's a half step late or starting to slide, he really sells it. And you can, I don't want to make comparisons to call him a Brazil player, for going over to the soccer side of things. But he's a little, he puts it on a little, right? He makes a show of it. Josh Allen does some of that too, but I think Mahomes is actually really good at selling the effects of those of that contact and bringing those flags out. About the conspiracy thing, I've always been a guy who dismisses that stuff.
Sure.
There are times watching the Chiefs where I wonder a little, I can't help it. I get it. I get the calls for, the total lack of holding calls on their offensive line over the years. And then you see him grabbing guys, and it's tough out there. I mean, I don't have a great explanation for all of it. I do think that, the league protects its top quarterbacks. And again, I think Mahomes sells those calls. He generates those calls. You compare him to a guy like Baker. Baker's putting his head down when he runs, Mahomes is never going to truck Bobby Wagner, right? He's never going to try. So, Baker put himself out there a little bit more. I think takes more risks with the ball in his hand. Whereas I think Mahomes picks his spots a little more carefully, and when the contact comes, he does a really good job of making it look good, right? And as frustrating as that is to watch as a fan that's not a Chiefs fan, and that's got to be even more frustrating for Chiefs opponents. It's just part of his game, and I don't know. I wish I had a better explanation for you, but it's tough out there for Chiefs opponents for sure.
Can't say Mahomes, can't say Josh Allen because those are just so obvious. But do you have an X factor in this game? This is a little off script. We didn't have it written down, but who would you say is your biggest X factor, either side, in this one?
Yeah, sure. So for the Bills, I'd say obviously James Cook, if they can establish the ground game with him, that's a big deal for them. I mean, the Chiefs are tough to run the ball against, but beyond that, a guy who's been kind of quiet since he got to Buffalo, Amari Cooper. You've got Keon Coleman, two guys who at times have made big plays, but never really been able to establish themselves as regular targets to really threaten defenses this year for Josh Allen. If either of those guys has a chance to break out, I think that Steve Spagnuolo for the Chiefs has got to be game planning if he's going to take anything away to focus on Khalil Shakir. But that is one of the challenges of this Bills offense, right? Is on one hand, yeah, they don't have a single guy who really scares you and really consistently punishes defenses by himself. But on the other hand, they're so good on offense despite not having that, right? So a lot of the best defensive coordinators in the league, they make their livings off of forcing teams to go to their second, third options. Well, everybody in Buffalo is a second, third option right now, right? So, there's not a single really terrifying threat that they have on offense. And in some ways, that makes them, I think, a little bit more dangerous going up against a game planner like Steve Spagnuolo, who doesn't have somewhere where he can really focus his attention outside of just trying to contain Josh Allen, which good luck with that, On the flip side for the Chiefs, a guy who's had big moments at times this year and was kind of coming on strong to close the year, Xavier Worthy, speed demon that they drafted this year to try to fill that Tyreek Hill role. We'll see in the future if he can be that kind of receiver. He really hasn't been this year, but he does make some plays with the ball in his hand, and this game could swing on one or two big plays from a game-breaking threat like him, and that would be the guy that I think is able to possibly do that for them if anybody is. While also, again, tipping your cap to Old Man Kelsey, who, after a quiet regular season, put up some pretty impressive numbers last week, and I think he'll be featured again in this game.
Might have been because Taylor was there. Could have been the reason why.
Can't dismiss the T Swift factor, right?
Yeah, you can't go 10 minutes in this thing and not talk about her. All right, what's your pick in this one?
Yeah, I mean, if there's any biggest reason to love the Chiefs, that's beyond the really obvious. It's the coaching matchup between Andy Reid and Sean McDermott. I think Sean McDermott's developed a reputation as a good head coach in this league, but I think he's shown in the past that he's struggled to really measure up to an elite guy like Andy Reid in the postseason. And Andy Reid gets in his bag at this time of year, right? So that could be it for the Chiefs. But all that said, I said earlier, I think it's crazy the Chiefs are favored. That line opened at them, with a point. Now they're -2. I'll take the Bills to win by more than a field goal. I think they step up. They handle their business. They keep it clean, like Josh Allen has all year. They're not going to make the mistakes that you've seen a lot of Chiefs opponents make that have given up games for teams that they've beaten this year. And I think we've got Josh Allen in the Super Bowl for the first time, and it's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, I'll go the other way. I'll take the Chiefs just because until I kind of like
because they're the Chiefs.
Yeah, just because it's until I see it, I need to I need to go with them. But
that's fair.
Yeah, it should be a fun one. Should be one that's really exciting. And again, the matchup we kind of probably thought we would get at the beginning of the year has come to pass. So if you watch this, if you enjoyed it, if you hated it, if you liked it, leave a comment and let us know down below. And do us a favor and hit the subscribe button. We previewed the other championship game, the Eagles and Commanders. You can click on the link on the screen right now to watch that. We appreciate you guys for tuning in to Pro Football Addiction.